Welcome, welcome, welcome to Getting a Bigger Gob On, the podcast that encourages women to be seen, heard, and unforgettable so they can create a life they love. I'm your hostess, Sharon Eden, the Wild Elder, welcoming you to the very first episode, Bravado Doesn't Hack It. When it came to creating this inaugural episode, I faffed around and began to write it as I thought I should. You know, the perfect podcast introductory episode. Then I laughed at myself and tried again. I produced another less serious version, but still tried to make it perfect. So then I really laughed at myself from deep down in my belly, deliciously and richly, while another part of me said, for fuck's sake, Sharon, you're hosting a podcast to help women get seen more, heard more, and be unforgettable, and you can't even do that for yourself. Ironic or what? But that's typical because for many of us, the fears associated with being seen and heard and their delaying and sabotaging tactics are never far away, just as they were with me as I began to write this episode. However, you can learn to recognize, interrupt, and neutralize your fears and give voice to your magnificent self. In fact, as love and fear cannot coexist, in the show notes, I've given you a link to a guided meditation audio. It uses the divine and healing energy of love to neutralize any pesky fear about being seen, heard, and unforgettable you might have. Because if you're like the rest of us, believe me, you'll have at least one. In the end, I stopped trying to create a perfect podcast introduction and wrote it how it is, because sticking to what's true for you is an essential element of being seen, heard, and absolutely unforgettable. I'll keep using that phrase because it's your birthright, woman. More of that later. So, what am I covering in this episode? Basically, why I created this podcast, why it's important for you to be seen, heard, and unforgettable, and what you can expect from every episode. So first, why I created Getting a Bigger Gob On comes in two parts, and here's the first one. My mother was diagnosed as terminally ill in the summer of 2015. My sister lives in America, and so I was my mum's only carer in the last few months of her life, which she spent in and out of hospital. A few days before she died, I was making tea in her kitchen, minding my own business, when I heard her, alone in another room, suddenly say out loud, "What a waste of a life." Her words hit me like a 10-ton truck, striking me dumb. What a waste of a life. The pain of hearing what she said and how she felt about herself and her life was unbearable for me. In the turmoil and grieving after her death, I began to get what I called downloads. In this case, they were messages about what I was now being called to do with my work as a spiritual psychotherapist coach. And the first message was that I was to specialize in working with women. Then, bit by bit, further clues made me realize I was being called to ensure that no woman I ever worked with would die as my mother had, believing she'd had a wasted life. It was to be my legacy and also hers. So my work began, and in time, my Amazon bestseller Rediscovered for Discontented Midlife Women was published. In it, I introduce what I call down and dirty spirituality to revitalize who you really are, where you're going, and what you came here to do. And as more and more midlife women told me they felt frustrated and overlooked, my work shifted towards helping them be seen, heard, and unforgettable so they wouldn't ever feel as my mother had before she died. Getting a bigger gob on is part of that legacy. Now, part two of why I created this podcast is brief and quite magical. I'm part of a very small group of women who work together, spiritually aligning ourselves with the moon's phases. And at full moon, we each say what we're leaving behind and what we want to develop in the coming lunar month. Just 2 full moons before recording this episode, I told the group one of the things I wanted to develop was getting a bigger gob on. We laughed out loud as the phrase was so typically me. As our laughter quietened, our group's leader said to me in a slow and firm way, "Getting a bigger gob on? That's the name of your new podcast." A shiver ran down my spine, and I knew she'd spoken the truth. Within 48 hours, I began working with a great podcast creator, and the rest is history. So, why is getting a bigger gob on important for you? I was born in 1948, and as a child, I learned it was a man's world. While women had worked on the land, in factories, and in the forces during World War II, when it was over and the men returned from war, women had to relinquish their jobs to them. Can you imagine that happening now? Not only was it a man's world, but a blind eye was given when men dominated and abused women. I'm pretty sure there's not a woman from my generation who didn't experience some form of sexual abuse, to name just one of the abuses the patriarchy breeds. So unconsciously, I decided it was better to be more masculine. They seem to have a better deal in life. And I operated from bravado, a very poor attempt at looking in charge and confident, both of which I was not. It was all a mask. However much I thought that bravado would help me be seen and heard, I was wrong. I had notoriety for having a gob, but little else. However, I could emasculate a male at 20 paces through the power of my vitriolic tongue. But hey, that's a whole other story. Then the women's movement came to the fore in the late 60s, 70s, and 80s. Although I never burned my bra or went to Greenham Common Women's Peace Camp, I allied myself with the National Women's Liberation Movement and feminism. In the early 80s, after studying a psychology degree, I trained for 7 years to become a psychotherapist. During this time, I had to undergo therapy myself, and the real work of clearing unproductive beliefs and behaviors and feelings so that I could be seen, heard, and unforgettable really began, believe me. Roll the camera forward some 50, 60 years or more into the 21st century, and while there have been some gains for women, the patriarchy is more than alive and kicking, and misogyny has come totally out of the closet and in some cases made the norm. Many midlife women and younger ones come to me feeling deflated and frustrated, as if they're invisible. Their words aren't valued and they don't seem to count. I'm recording this in 2025, and those of you listening now will know what a desperate state our world is in. Some of it caused by psychopathological male leaders, predators, control freaks, narcissists, and the like. The normalization of misogyny is rife on social media. Now, the Dalai Lama once said that Western women would save the world, and he means this current crazy world of ours. That's you and me, babe. So it's essential that as many of we women as possible be seen, heard, and unforgettable. But that's not the only important reason for getting a bigger gob on. Here's the thing. You have a wild soul, and that's your spark of the divine within you. And your wild soul holds your original design, the unique and magnificent woman you were meant to be before life squashed you and molded you into how it wanted you to be. What you don't know is if you start imagining the woman you'd love to be in your wildest dreams, you can tap into your magnificent original design because she's there, the woman that you would so love to be. Indeed, imagine if when you walk down the street, your hips sway, you're light on your feet because you know what you have to offer is important and valued. When you speak, people pay attention to every word you say. You feel sexy and desirable again as your true self, and your energy radiates to everyone who comes into your presence. You have a deep sense of purpose and meaning, and you know both you and your life are worthwhile. Now that's what I'm talking about. So, while firstly, getting a bigger gob on is important because what we women have to offer in speaking to power is, I believe, how we can defeat the current hatred, divisiveness, and toxicity in our world. And secondly, if you never ever do any of that because you don't have to, getting a bigger gob on is crucially important for your own beautiful personal and spiritual development. Becoming more of the magnificent woman you were designed to be, creating a life you love, is your absolute birthright. And now we come to what you can expect from each podcast episode. My brilliant guests and I respect that your time is precious. So each episode is no more than 20 minutes, enough time for you to have a break and a cuppa or take a walk to energize your day. What you'll get is my guests' true life stories of how they became seen, heard, and unforgettable, along with three simple yet powerful tips to achieve what they have coming from their own experiences and wisdom. None of them, I promise you, are divas, egotists, or out to sell you big money courses. I know them all, and I ask them to be my guests because I know the quality of their hearts and souls and their deep desire to serve, to help you grow and flourish. That is it. No fluff, no bullshit, just concentrated high value. The podcast's topics include from shy to showtime. You don't have to be a social media queen. Taking a stand changes lives, including yours. How love and community fueled one of my guests' comeback from silence to seen. And episode 7 is a bit of a mystery at the moment, but hey, who knows what will emerge. So, to wrap up this first episode, I've spoken about why I created Getting a Bigger Gob On, why getting one is important for you, and what you can expect from this podcast. My tips were that you can neutralize fear with the divine and healing energy of love, which is absolute yum. Do try it. Sticking to what's true for you is essential to being seen, heard, and unforgettable. And finally, Start imagining the woman you'd love to be, and you'll help yourself become her. My guests and I would love your company on this extraordinary journey. So join us every week and discover how you too can stand out, speak up, and become truly unforgettable by, of course, getting a bigger gob on. Until the next time, goodbye.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.